Hi, everyone. I'm Allison McCord. On behalf of Austin and I just want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. We also want to extend a big thank you to our wonderful partners at the Maritime Aquarium for hosting, letting us use this absolutely huge screen. We are over the moon thrilled to be presenting the final concept for Manresa Wilds to you all tonight. Sure, yeah. When Austin and I first walked on site a few years ago, we were overwhelmed by the potential. Since then, we've been working with the team and we've all been dreaming really big. But it's not just about what we want to see. That's not what's going to make this project successful. So, following our first unveiling 14 months ago, we really dug down with all of you to find out what it was to make this project a community project. We held 3 community engagement sessions. We've had numerous meetings with different neighborhood and local organizations. We've hosted hundreds of on-site tours. And after all of that, we asked you for your thoughts on the project, and we received a ton of feedback. We got to hear what you love, what you were concerned about, and what you hope the final version of Manresa Wilds might be. We've listened. With the project that you're going to see tonight has incorporated thousands of design revisions. The team at Scape and Big are going to walk you through those and show you how the project has evolved. We strongly feel that the project is better because of the input we have received from all of you. I really feel that way. It's a better project. But ultimately, the core goals remain the same. We're going to create a beautiful park that allows people to connect to nature and the sound. We're going to create community spaces for research and learning. And critically, we're going to take this big piece of shoreline and revitalize it so it is healthier and more resilient for people and for wildlife. We hope that you are as excited about this as we are. And with that, I'm going to kick it off to Jessica Vanashek, the Manresa Island Corp Executive Director, to lead you through the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Really nice to see you all. We're starting to feel like family. We get to see each other. I feel like I've seen you more than my mom and dad over the last year, and that's a great thing. I love my mom and dad, but it's so nice to be able to spend time with you all, and so amazing to hear all of your thoughts and the summary that Allison just gave. You know, we really care. We care about the park. We care about you. We care about the neighbors. And Allison said it best when she said it's just a better project because of all of the feedback that you've given. We're here tonight to unveil the final concept plan. A number of us will be speaking with you. I have the honor of opening up just with a couple of slides to set the stage for you. And then Gina is going to be speaking about the landscape, and Daniel will speak about the building. And then we're going to have Austin with closing remarks. This project is led by 5 values, and these are 5 values that have been strong since day one. When I first started working with Allison and Austin, this is one of the very first things that they showed me, and they said, this is what is leading this project today, tomorrow, and in the future. It's an island for all. It's a place like no other. Definitely a hub for learning and discovery that you'll meet a bunch of partners down the hall that we're so excited about. We're talking about revitalized ecology, which I'm sure you will see today, and definitely a model for future thinking. We know that there are hundreds of these sites around the US, and this can be used as a case study in order to be able to think about how to move the needle forward on polluted sites just like this one. We have a team, and this team gets bigger every time I see you, and every time we meet we get to say that we have another box and another face on our team, and they're so amazing. I'm not sure if everyone is in the room. We have the overflow space as well, but you should meet these folks. These are the folks that are delivering the park for you, for the McCords, and again, between design and construction and remediation and thinking about how all of these pieces come together, along with communications and marketing, we're here as your resource for Manresa Wilds. There's nothing more that we love than talking to people. I love being able to see everybody in the coffee shop and at the grocery store, and I'm hearing all of this really great feedback and concerns. But we're all doing that. Each one of us is here to be able to listen to what everyone has to say, both good and concerns. What's worrying you? So please, as you recognize people around the building tonight, say hello. Manresa Island Corp is the 501c3 that we all work for. It was established by Allison and Austin about a year ago. And the mission of that nonprofit is to remediate the site, restore the ecology, and build out the park, and then manage the park in perpetuity. And the reason for that is to be able to establish the park as a point for access for all of us to get to the Long Island Sound, whether it be for educational purposes or for recreational purposes, but being able to actually have access to the water in a meaningful way. This slide shows where we are. Allison had mentioned we've had 3 community meetings to date, one in March, one in May. We had a really big community celebration in July. And today really marks the final community meeting for our formal community engagement session. And you're going to end up seeing many of our partners down the hall and many boards, and you'll be able to see all of these things in detail. But we wanted to really mark that on the calendar. That doesn't mean that we're not listening, and it doesn't mean that we're going to stop picking up the phone, and it doesn't mean any of those things. We not only need to design and construct the park, but we need to operate the park too. And I think a lot of what we're hearing are those feedback points about operation. And I want to ensure to all of you and make a commitment to all of you that our team is here to be able to work with everybody to make sure that Manresa Wilds is a success. So although today is the concept reveal, it doesn't mean that that we're going anywhere. We can't wait to give you updates, and you saw our team. So we're all going to be out there being able to talk with everybody, just as we all have. I'm going to pass it over to Gina. Gina Worth is with Landscape, and she is absolutely amazing. She's going to walk us through not only community engagement and the recap, but also the landscape portion of this new concept plan. Thanks again.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see so many familiar faces as well as new faces in the room. I think everyone's talked about just how important tonight is in terms of really showing and sharing how your feedback, feedback big and small, has really shaped the evolution of this design for it to be a much better project that nests within the community and fabric of Norwalk. So we're very excited to share these updates. Before we jump into the design, I did want to share a bit of an engagement recap. If you're interested in diving into what the people of Greater Norwalk desire at this space, the Manresa Wilds group will be releasing a community engagement report on their website very soon. And so I think that will be a great place to go check out further details. But there's been just a really wide variety of engagement happening around this project. Over a year of formal public engagement. Over 3,000 community voices have been reached in this process with multiple different types and scales of community events. This is one of them. Thank you for coming. I think a really exciting statistic is that over 2,000 people have actually set foot on the island and experienced the kind of drama and the magic of the wild landscape and the kind of impressive scale and historic function of the building. And through that active engagement and presence and understanding of the space, we've had just quite a lot of written survey responses, individual meetings, one-on-ones, and small stakeholder group sessions, as well as some larger scale public meetings to inform the development of the design. So we know this is just a huge amount of work on your part, and we really thank you for participating in this process with all of us. These are some of the major engagement milestones that we've kind of accomplished together, a whole series of formal community meetings like this evening, as well as these smaller scale kind of outreach sessions with local homeowners associations, stakeholder groups, schools, youth engagement. We've tried to make sure that we're touching many different audiences and the many different types and kinds of people that would come visit Manresa Wilds in the future. A quick recap of some of these sessions. At our first meeting, we shared like the big vision for Manresa, but also a lot about the kind of history and the kind of community history and social history, as well as the ecological history of the site. So we heard people's kind of responses to those concepts. In our second meeting, we did a lot of like much more granular discussions one-on-one with people about what kinds of programs and activities you would and would not like to see here. Very, very informative. And then on our third large-scale meeting, it was more of a community celebration, as well as continued outreach and engagement, and a reveal of the Manresa Wilds brand, kind of this vision of a park that is restored, remediated, and wild for all. There was also a lot of fun there. And I think there were some really common themes that spanned through all of these different meetings, the large public meetings and the smaller stakeholder sessions. I think it was wonderful to see so much positive feedback about the transformation of this place, bringing the public back to Manresa after so many generations of being shut out of this incredible former island. There was so much interest in nature immersion spaces that felt wild and felt ecological. It was mentioned by Jess, but I think just the concept of water resonated really strongly with this community. There are not many public access points to the water today. There needs to be more public access to the Long Island Sound and to Norwalk Harbor. And this island, or this former island, is an incredible opportunity to engage water in multiple ways. There was strong support for public, free, everyday use by all. And also very strong support for kind of tying into the greater Norwalk school system and thinking strongly about different scales of education and learning happening on the site, particularly environmental education. And then finally, I think there was a desire for playful spaces for all ages, young and old, to help activate and enliven the site, and especially provide a place for local Norwalk families. I think we all know there are concerns about the project too, and there's kind of continued work. I think tonight you'll see a lot of changes made in response to the concerns listed here on the right. Concerns about neighborhood impacts, light, noise, use, environmental impacts. The site needs to be remediated, and just that alone is a whole design project in and of itself. And we're thinking very carefully and working with the necessary agency partners to make sure that process happens in as sensitive a way as possible. And also concerns about the intensity and scale of use and traffic. And these are some elements that I think the team has really responded to in the design vision that I'll be sharing in just a moment. So this is why we're here tonight, to really share the big updates to both the landscape and the building. So I'll be speaking for a little bit about some of the landscape concepts updates, and then I'll share kind of pass it over to Daniel to speak more about how the building is evolving based upon the feedback that we heard. So the general themes that we heard that have really shaped the evolution of the landscape have been around keeping the space and restoring the space, or rewilding the space to be a wild and natural park, a space that really embraces water in multiple ways across the different edges of the park, and a place that embraces environmental education and stewardship. And then finally, a place that is community-centric in its active uses. There is a desire for active use here, but active uses that really serve the local neighborhoods. And so we've made a number of changes, and I'm going to walk through them in more detail to kind of high-level summarize some of these big edits that have been made based upon your feedback, to speak more to the natural and wild characters of the site. Just starting kind of around the building, we've thought about how we can reduce some of the active programming along the edges that are really closer to neighborhoods like Village Creek, and expand some of our planted buffers within these zones and have more wild and natural space via bigger buffer to the neighbors. We thought about naturalizing the beach design to really differentiate it from local beaches like Calf Pasture, which are much more active and more traditionally recreational. We want this to feel to be a beach where you can still swim and engage the water, but have a different character and feel. We thought about increasing our areas of native planting site-wide within the project, and also removing pathways from certain portions of the project. So for example, in the foreground here, you see the preserved jetty. Previously, we had a large activated boardwalk running along this edge, and now we're proposing removing those paths and allowing this just to be a space for non-human users of the park, the birds, the others. I think also on the eastern edge, we've thought more about how to reduce the scale and intensity of some of that program, remove some of the more active program there, and replace it with an expanded series of living shorelines. There was a lot of interest in how many of the hard edges of the site, the riprap edges and walls, could be knocked back. Those spaces could be remediated, and new marshes could be put in their place that reflect some of the ecosystems that once existed. Within the North Forest area, we're thinking a lot about long-term biodiversity and forest management, as well as refining that forest trail network. And then I think another really big change that makes the space more natural and wild is that on the western edge of the project, in the large coastal marsh that exists, we've proposed to remove all of the boardwalks that were previously shown in that zone to provide this like much larger buffer and preserve the critical ecology of that space. From a perspective of water access and education, something people really wanted to see, water, water, water. One thing that we've kind of collaboratively done with BIG is to concentrate the pool programming and have a kind of central community-focused pool for community use, for lap swimming, for other kinds of like intergenerational events, directly between the boiler building and the smokestack, and kind of celebrate the iconic nature of the smokestack with some interesting new architectural gestures, which I'll let Daniel reveal. There's some beautiful kind of connections down to this naturalized beach. So you still have this connection between the pool swimming and the natural beach swimming. We thought about within the harbor area of the project, the Deepwater Harbor Zone, how we can really forge new relationships with some of our project partners, our educational partners, for example, the Woods Hole Institute, as well as the Maritime Aquarium, and also enable more universal access to the water for all. So for example, we've introduced a universal access kayak launch within this zone and also reduced the active nature of the harbor. We've expanded our nature play area in response to this desire for outdoor education and engagement for children. Introduced new water-based ecosystems like the ecological tide pool zone, and then thought about how some of the structures on the site could do dual purpose, be spaces for learning, but also spaces for stewardship and training. And then throughout the whole project, we've maintained a path network that still allows people to see these different types of waterfront edges, the harbor side, the kind of beach side, the wetland side, but we've reduced the number of pathways throughout the entire project overall. And then finally, thinking about these community-centric active uses, again, it's really critical that the activities and the programs that happen here are really serving and responding to the needs of the wider community, the wider Norwalk community. And so I think some of the things that we're showing are, some of them are reductions in program, actually like stepping back a little bit, because that's something we've heard from many of you. So starting at the building, again, consolidating that pool program instead of multiple pools throughout the site. There's one central community pool for the project. We removed active programming that was closer to the neighbors of Village Creek and Harbor View. We've removed program that might be like, quote unquote, more high intensity destination, like the thermal pools that once were in the landscape. We've kind of put those ideas to the side, and also removed the plunge pool from the harbor. In their place, we've replaced those zones with larger planting areas, more passive spaces, and a kind of larger meadow buffer around the central lawn. We've scaled back program at the harbor, and we've also scaled back the active play space. So we've taken some of the area that used to be very active play space with lots of play equipment and features and made that more passive, nature-based outdoor education and play space. So still very joyful and fun, but with a different kind of Manresa Wilds feeling. There's been a lot of attention, especially on the architectural side, around reducing light pollution within the project, and thinking about also trying to make sure that our roadways and pathways have a thick planted buffer to the west of them, to ensure that they're not disrupting the neighbors. And we know traffic will still be on everyone's mind, and we're not trying to like sweep that under the rug or ignore that in any way. We want this to be a continued conversation with all. Many of the active program reductions that we've made will help ease the traffic needs to the site. Also, this project will undergo a phased approach to construction. This is a big vision, and we're working towards this big vision, but it will not all happen within one day, right? It will happen over many years, and there'll be time to adapt and manage over time. There will be further traffic studies that coincide with the planning and zoning process, so the traffic conversation will continue. And even within the design updates that we're sharing today with these less intensive uses and more nature-based program, we've also thought carefully about the design, how it can pull some of the roadways in, have bigger planted buffers, and also have an intersection design that makes sure people who are here looking to come to the park funnel right into the park and do not go into the adjacent neighborhoods. There's also operational controls that can happen, like parking can be managed through an online reservation system. And then very importantly, at its core, this is meant to be a multimodal project that has many different transportation methods to get here, not just car. So bus, shuttle, ferry, and bike are all still very much part of the project vision. And I think when you can look at the overall plan, one of the really exciting big updates is that now over 40% of the entire site is dedicated to nature-based and more passive uses. And that is, I think, something that we're very excited to kind of present to all and make sure that kind of maintains itself as the design evolves. So I wanted to just zoom into some of these moments and really share, like, it's not just like a list of a laundry list of the changes that we made. It's also about like the quality of space and the kind of experience you can have at Manresa Wilds. So we'll be zooming in on this bird's eye image and kind of moving around the site. What you see here is the consolidated pool directly adjacent to the iconic smokestack and the boiler building, with this much more naturalistic shrub scramble experience that brings you down to the kind of more pebbly and rocky beach edge that preserves some of the wetland pockets that exist there today. You all can also see the larger, almost like doubled in size planted buffer to the west. This central pool, I think, is going to be an incredible experience and a great destination for Norwalk's local families, and will directly connect through the shrub scramble to the beach. I think this is really a great opportunity to showcase just the great diversity of native coastal vegetation that grows both in and around this site, but also on the Norwalk Islands, bringing a little bit of the Norwalk Islands to the public. So this is a view of that kind of refined beach design. It's still very much a place where you can wade in the water or swim in the water. We want people to be able to use the Long Island Sound. That was something that came up in many of the engagement discussions. People would like to get in the water and have more public access to the water. And so you can do that here. But you also can have these much more passive recreational experiences, wandering around these coastal pathways, sitting on a hammock, and just enjoying the beauty of the wider watery landscape. Moving kind of a little bit to the north and west, again, we have this larger planted buffer, and we thought carefully about parking allocation within the project. One important thing has been to think about the building itself and the roles that it's serving, and how the spaces will be used. And through a better understanding of kind of managing storage and operations within the building, we realized that we needed to relocate some of our parking into this zone here to better serve the beach area, which we know will be very popular. And we want to be able to have people come here more directly and use the beach, the small cafe and plaza, and the shrub scramble down to the natural shoreline edge. This is moving around to the eastern side of the building. This is a zone where we've removed some of these larger, more destination features like the thermal pools, and replaced them with more evergreen coastal planting. We've also kind of reframed and enlarged the lawn and the meadow area that shapes the lawn. So there'll be these really interesting kind of biodiverse planted walkways shaping your approach up and around the building. Closer to the building, I think a really exciting development in the admin's building is that there's going to be a community cafe or a park cafe there that will be specifically designed to kind of help serve users of the park. So it'll be a great place to go grab a cup of coffee or have lunch and then sit outside in the terrace landscape and look over the incredible views. So this is just a quick snapshot of what that could look like, the relationship of the redesigned admin building and kind of park restaurant or cafe with terraced seating and kind of stepped views overlooking the kind of larger scale lawn space, which has been expanded, and what's particularly been expanded is the native plantings that help line and shape the edges of the lawn here, with significantly more tree planting, which we're excited about. We also want this to be a multi-seasonal destination, right? We all know, like days like today remind us that we want to be able to use park spaces throughout all the seasons. So you can imagine coming here, maybe on a ferry system, taking a walk up to the restaurant or the cafe, having a hot cider, and then using the sledding hill with your family as part of your like everyday weekend activity. In the Harbor Promenade area, this is a zone where we heard from the community there was a desire to have many of these types of programs, but maybe just not quite as large or as intense. And so what we've done here is really scaled down the Harbor Promenade programming, made it less active, made our paths narrower, but maintained a space at the base of the lawn for some like pop-up food truck programming and lighter touch activation that could also serve boats that might be coming in from the greater harbor over time. A lot of opportunities here, again, to kind of build these educational relationships and partnerships with some of our research partners on the project, like Woods Hole. This is zooming over to the playground area. We've significantly reduced the active playground footprint. We still think this is going to be an incredible playground that all families of Norwalk will want to visit. But we've expanded the nature play area within this. So I would say it's even more unique as a playground that really serves this community and provides something that isn't present today in the greater region. So this is a view of the active play. We've really tried to incorporate water into these experiences because we know that there's a desire to interact and touch water throughout every portion of this park. But much more of the project in the play space now is about nature play. We have a kind of driftwood forest building area and a willow weaving area and many other kind of exciting activities that can happen within this nature play space. One of the spaces that we heard just a huge amount of positive feedback around and is very much preserved in the design is the Cedar Swamp and Urban Ecology Center concept. And so we have kept that kind of restored cedar swamp that's shown here in the middle of this image. It's a really unique ecosystem that is rare in the region. And we have some interesting existing topography that kind of sets itself up really well to be a restored cedar swamp in the future. And it's complemented by a future urban ecology center, which will be in partnership with some of our very important program partners. And also the maintenance hub for the park, because we all know parks need great maintenance and operation. So we're trying to plan for that as well. So some of these images, if you've been to previous meetings, they are the same or very similar because we heard a lot of positive feedback for these ideas. On the eastern side of the park, this is where we're thinking about transforming that like really hardened edge. If you walk along this edge today, you'll see lots of riprap, lots of waste concrete pieces being used that kind of hold up the edge. This is where we're hoping to remove that material, remediate the ground, and allow the coastal waters of the Sound to come in and establish salt marshes and coastal ecosystems, which help the ecological resilience of the site and help make it more resilient to sea level rise and storms. Also creating just really beautiful passive experiences, pathways, walkways. There's micro moments like this in the project, and we're trying to really build on them, enhance them, and expand them. We also have our fully ADA accessible circulation trail that wraps around the whole project. So again, it's important that no matter if you're elderly or in a wheelchair or pushing a stroller, you're still able to use and access the major portions of the site and experience the different watery edges of the site. And then here in the Western Marsh, this is where we've really, again, reduced program. We've removed those marsh boardwalks. We've actually pushed the road to the east, and we're establishing a new kind of forested buffer that helps buffer the edge of the road. And we've tried to reduce and kind of concentrate the boardwalk paths to be only within these interior restored wetlands, which will be undergoing a remediation process and will be used for environmental education as they connect directly to the educational center. And so this is our updated image of the Western Marsh with that bigger, thicker buffer around the rebuilt road that's also lifted out of the zone of future sea level rise and coastal storm action, preserving the integrity of the marsh in the foreground. And then ending with the North Forest. I think we're all really excited about the North Forest because it is happening quite soon. It's a very early phase of this project. And it's meant to also be kind of a testing grounds to see certain elements of the project, see how the community responds, and be able to kind of continue to shape the development of the greater system. Here in the North Forest, this is an incredibly unique ecosystem. It looks very wild and natural, but it is a predominantly gray birch forest canopy growing on the contaminated coal tar deposits or fly ash deposits. And so we've worked very carefully with DEEP to develop a remediation plan for this space that allows for the remediation of any place which is publicly accessible, but does not destroy the forest at the same time. So it's a very delicate balancing act. And they have approved this approach. And we recently got this portion of the plan approved through the Planning and Zoning Commission, and really appreciate the positive feedback that we've received on this passive forest experience. So there's a parking area, there's a reconfigured intersection, there's a roadway pushed back with a bigger planted buffer, and there's a whole series of walking trails at different scales. Some are sized for like families and strollers, and some are sized just like more intimate individual experiences, more discovery trails, we're calling them. And there's these three, we're calling them pockets. They're like rooms or pockets kind of carved out of the forest. And they're carved out of spaces which are very much in need of restoration and are kind of covered in invasive plants today. One of the rooms is, we call it the Learn Pocket. It's there on the right, kind of closer to the coast. It's a educational space that's meant to host groups from the Norwalk school system, like a high school, or maybe the aquarium would come there, we hope. That's why we're here tonight. To really be able to educate around the ecological processes of the sound. We also have a more passive room called the Gather Room, which is a part meadow and part mown lawn area for like passive activities like a small picnic or throwing a frisbee around or having a small yoga session with a couple of friends. And then the largest room within this space is the ecological room, which is introducing a new grassland and flowering meadow into this unique ecology, and really helping create these like really important zones where grassland meets forest, and like different species really love those different edges. So this image in the next slide is a view of that eco room, that grassland meadow space. And I think one of the big goals here is to really plant a wide variety of native grasses, forbs, perennials, and annuals that attract and support beneficial insects as well as local birds. And with all of these spaces, they're all about phasing, they're all about growth over time. One of the most important things we can do in the North Forest is think about how to rejuvenate and diversify the existing gray birch canopy. The trees are very, very beautiful, but they are short-lived species and they are all the same age. And so a big piece of the work that's happening in the North Forest is planting smaller restoration species that are more diverse, with more diversity of native species that can grow up over time and take the place of those gray birches as they begin to die out and complete their life cycle. So as much as this is a passive recreation project, it's very much an ecological stewardship project. And so with that, I will pass it to Daniel to kind of knit the building kind of back into the landscape fabric. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gina, and thank you everybody showing up today. It's so rare to have so much constructive feedback so early in a process like this for an architect. So I'm super excited to see all of you guys here today. Just kind of a little fun game here. How many of you guys have been here for all the 4 meetings? Just for curiosity. Oh, wow. Incredible. Thank you. So from the beginning, from our perspective, it's really been important that the building really supports the park, but also supports the Norwalk community and you guys. And it's been so terrific to get all the kind of variety of feedback from you all through this process. And I'm just going to reiterate some of the comments that Gina made, but we like to believe that we're here to kind of help to resolve problems. So the architecture team have really thrived from this kind of array of comments from you all through this process. And we have distilled a couple of let's say key points that have really changed how we think of the project. And I'll say the first one on the top red there, to really think about this as a phased build out. So essentially phase the building together with the park and understand what the community needs might look like in the future. And then, of course, also reuse of the existing structure as much as possible. Really seeing the building for what it is and how we can actually optimize what is here today. And then also, I think there was a lot of comments and conversations about the use, the program. What are we going to do in this building? Who is going to be there and how many? So hopefully, I'm going to address some of these comments today. And then finally, of course, in regards to really supporting the park and the community, to thinking about the type of activities that can be going on here. We're talking about it as a building, but it's really, I would say it's really a campus or a constellation of different structure that really kind of in itself, they all are somewhat tailored to different kind of needs or speak to different needs. So community and culture is a really big one, has been driving a lot of the thinking around the turbine hall. Food and beverage to really support the park throughout all the seasons. And of course, thinking about park support, we are looking at all the water use and how we can support the water use. And finally, research, education, and recreation. This is really exciting, and I have a couple of slides on that later in the presentation. We've also been thinking about how this building and what's going on in the building can support and complement what you guys already have in Norwalk. So this is just a few examples of places that we have visited and got really excited about. This is a historical photo. You might ask yourself, why keeping this building? And we got a lot of comments about this. But I'd say this is a magnificent structure. It's built to last for generations. There's a couple of facts here. It's basically 4,650 tons of steel and 21,000 tons of concrete. Just to give you guys a sense of scale, 21,000 tons of concrete is 1,000 truckloads of concrete. So it's a lot of structure and it's a lot of material that went into this building. And the other thing that is really interesting is that it's actually been holding up very well over time. So the building is in great condition. Both the structure and the envelope. Actually, we have been doing some tests recently that shows very positive results. So we believe we can actually restore and upgrade a lot of the existing infrastructure, envelope, and structure in the building today. And then just the fact that you have a foundation and a structure to work from as an architect means that you don't need to build that from scratch. So from a carbon perspective, you can actually save up to 75% of the embodied carbon if you would do a similar size project for the Norwalk community from scratch. So there is a lot of exciting reasons why we think this building is such a perfect example of adaptive reuse. And the last bit is actually that there is about 150 and 200 similar power plants around the East Coast here in America. And we think the way we kind of progress with this project can hopefully inspire others to think about what they have in their front yard, I was about to say. And I'm going to talk about a couple of kind of start here with what we refer to as the first phase of the building. And that ties in actually in the second phase of the park. And I apologize if it's confusing, but if you have more questions about phasing, feel free to approach us later on. But essentially, there's three things that we have been focusing on and we're looking at as a part of the first phase. It's the pool deck and pool pavilion to really support the park recreation. And then there is the admin building where we envision food and beverage. And then there is the turbine hall for events and gathering, exhibitions, and etc. And I'm going to start by talking a bit about the first structure that hopefully will go up, and that's the pool pavilion. So this is kind of approaching from the park. This will be a wood structure that essentially coils around the existing smokestack. It will house a kind of a cafe stand. It will house restrooms, shaded areas to have food. Imagine yourself spending the day on the beach. You can go here and use the amenities here. And it's also, you can see that it kind of curves up, if you will. It also allows you to use a ramp to get up to the pool deck, as well as a stair on the inside. So there's kind of the design actually derives from the idea of having architecture express accessibility and kind of a welcoming gesture. So this will be the kind of experience as you walk up the stair. So you would actually walk around the existing smokestack, being able to look up as you ascend up onto the roof deck or pool deck. And of course, you can continue. There's going to be a sun deck, hopefully there, with views over the sound. And it kind of culminates in this diving platforms. One of you guys actually asked if we could put a diving platform at the top of the smokestack, which is, it is 350 feet tall. And I did some research, and apparently the tallest height that somebody have dived from or and survived is 170 feet. So we didn't pursue that idea, but we have at least 16 feet for the more kind of daredevils out there. And then you see there is this existing openings. That's actually historically where the precipitator building had all the kind of fumes and gases coming into the to the smoke stack. Gina already showed this image, but we're super excited creating shade structures, seating areas. Obviously, it's kind of a early conceptual image, but you can imagine a lot of different activities going on here, both for families and folks that just want to relax in the sun. And then, of course, if you get hungry after your kind of a swim in the pool, you can head over to the admin building. So the entire ground floor will actually become a food service where you will have cafe, you will have a restaurant. It's all going to be connected to the park with outdoor service. We even have this kind of foldable glass wall, so you can open it up in the summer, and then in the wintertime you can close it down. So really creating that kind of gradient, if you will, from the park to the building. And this could be, you know, families, daytime, having a snack in the middle of the day, but also in the evening, it might turn into, you know, a place where you can go and have potentially a cocktail or a drink. And then the turbine hall. This obviously the turbine hall is put almost like the heart of this project. It's an amazing structure. The main hall inside is roughly 120 by 180. It's 56 feet clear. This is the north elevation of the building, and the main hall essentially starts. If I can reach up there, but the main hall starts up there, and from the waist up, if you will, we're essentially going to preserve and keep the existing facade as it is today. And we heard a lot of concerns and questions about light pollution, and this is something we take very serious, both from the neighbor's perspective, but also from the bird perspective and the ecology around the building. So you will essentially have the building completely closed off, and then you will have a screened window around the entrance. We'll preserve the existing transformers, and you can see this double height entrance will become a kind of a drop-off zone. And on the second floor, you will actually be able to see one of the community spaces inside. And as you go into the building, so this is where it starts to get very exciting for us. You go into the building. This will be on the existing ground floor. You will be greeted by a really generous stair for school classes and visitors to really kind of engage with the building, sit here and relax, or simply wait for your friends, and then kind of ascend up to the different activities. There is some incredible cooling pipes that we want to preserve. Um, so this actually connects down into the sound. So if you would take this away, you would basically be able to swim out into the sound. But we think they are very it's really an incredible piece of industrial heritage. We have elevators behind, and then as you come up to the second floor, you can see the welcome desk. This is actually an image where you're in the middle of this stair looking out. So here you kind of look back out, so you will see a community space that we envision on the second floor that could be completely flexible, where you can have events, exhibition, gathering, educational activities. And then as you come up to the second floor here, we also envision that, of course, there's so many exciting kind of pieces of equipment, machineries in this building, and we really want to preserve a lot of them and kind of make them a part of the marvel of visiting this building. This is actually an exact replica of the existing turbine that sits within those encased volumes above. And then as you continue up, this is just showing still on the second floor, you are continuing up to the third floor. So this is one of the kind of yellow stairs. By the way, we're still working through all these color ideas, but we thought it would be kind of fun to play with color because the building today actually is color coded where all the stairs are yellow. The existing elevator core is red. So there's like a lot of kind of a fun play with colors already that has a very like functional story to it. So so this is what it looks like today in the turbine hall. You have the two turbines, obviously a lot of pipes, a lot of ducts, a lot of machinery, and these used to actually produce, I think it's 150,000 kilowatt hours, serving about 7 towns in around the kind of Norwalk region. So like an amazing kind of scale of impact that this building once had. And we really want to celebrate a lot of this and essentially clean up the floor, making sure we can create a continuous, it would be roughly 22,000 square feet venue. Again, keeping a lot of the existing structure, the gantry crane, which is all still working actually. I've tried it out. Austin was afraid I'm gonna like go out through the window, but we all survived. And then as the boiler building, the tallest structure is for future phases. We do need to seal it off. But we thought it could be fun to create these moments where you can actually get a glimpse into the future and the past, if you will. So really preserving a lot of that machinery. You can imagine you can press some buttons maybe, and we can some light that goes off in there. And this is a kind of what we call a perspectival section where you see the whole how everything comes together in the turbine hall. Everything from these amazing footings, it's almost like a little palace in itself. The footings for the turbines, the stair. You can see this white dashed line close to the ground, and this actually represents the flood level. So this building is sitting in the flood zone, which means that you need to move a lot of important technical equipment up, but you can still use the ground floor for storage and transitional use. So we see an incredible opportunity here, having kayaks, having some of the kind of smaller go-karts and such. And then on the second floor, we envision that you will have a potentially some store where you can buy different things. Again, community spaces of different kinds, and then this amazing turbine hall on top. And just to just to give you guys some scale, this is a Boeing 737-800. I just want to be clear about that. And it does fit inside. And apparently you can actually, in theory, you could hoist it with the gantry crane. So it's like it's a lot of it's just exciting to think about the potential of this building. I mean, it was dimensioned to really move a lot of equipment in and out. And then, of course, thinking about the future phases. Again, this is really something that we see will evolve, will grow, and especially in terms of partnerships, because the interest of this project is growing. People like the MIC organization is speaking to a lot of different organizations, institutions, and people that are super excited to be a part of this project. So we want to make sure that the building grows with the park, you know, and grows with the community. So this is kind of just an idea, a glimpse into the future, what this building could house. But we are kind of excited. This is just like one scenario where we saw continuing this idea of an indoor park in one half and institutional research space in the other half, following actually the historical divide. Those two, there's two boilers inside here. They were actually built at different times. So the building have a kind of a natural split in the middle. And then you can imagine that there's even more kind of opportunities to kind of connect the building with the park, and this idea of bringing the park even into the building and bringing it up. If you imagine, for those of you who have visited the building, there's two massive kind of boilers in the middle, but we actually envisioned that you would take those out and create this kind of almost like incredible industrial cathedral for kids and families to learn about the park and the building and so on. And then since you get thirsty, you probably will get thirsty going all the way up here. We envision some sort of a juice bar or a brewery even. We were just playing around with this idea of the osprey's nest, but obviously you have incredible views up here. So creating a destination, a restaurant or a cafe, just for people to gather, the community to gather, potentially even a little rooftop up there. And really thinking about how all this coming together. Again, there is this kind of overarching theme of community and culture, research and education, recreation and play for all seasons. And then as a last kind of fun little fact, we are in conversation about potentially creating an oceanographic kind of institute in the boiler building. And there's a few folks from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute here today that can speak about that. But we were concerned we got the submarine wrong, but like there is some incredible pictures of the real one out there. So again, we really see this as a ecosystem, a social ecosystem, if you will, of design and a program coming together for you guys, for the community, and hopefully for generations to come. And now I'm going to hand over to Austin, who's going to talk about next steps.
Thank you. All right, next steps. So this was really cool that we kind of covered a bit of like the what. And I think a lot of all these things, like what I hope you see in all this is that the values really come through. And that this has been our North Star in kind of deciding what needs to go here and how it gets built and how it all comes together has really been sort of these core values. And your feedback, I think, has really helped us to build a better design and hopefully will be a much better park, all said and done. So how does this play out? How do we do this? Well, we have this project timeline here, and it's pretty crazy because it's, 2023 is when Allison and I started. We first told you guys about it, and 2024 is when it like all started to come together. Last year, we announced kind of that initial vision, and in 2026, here we are, and like it's our job to start realizing this. And so the Northern Forest is the first piece of this puzzle. And we're really excited to hopefully be in a position to open the Northern Forest next year. And then in 2028, our plan, assuming all of the planning and zoning and all the good things we need to do there, that's when the real construction will start, with the idea that 2032 to 2035 would be when Manresa Wilds opens. So one of the things associated with that is kind of, how do we pay for all this? And we've been thinking a lot about that. And we are aware that we're, in pretty deep here. So what we want to share today is, at least, like, we have a very good understanding of what's involved in preparing the site. And so teams have been out studying all the soils, studying the tides, studying all the animals, everything that's involved. And so it's like, how do we put this whole site together, and how do we make it safe for the next 100 years? How do we make sure that you can access it, that it's not going to float away, that bad stuff's not going to come off it? And we are ready to share that number. And it turns out that that number is actually far more expensive than any of the fun stuff on the park. And so this is sort of, where we're at. So if we put those pieces together, and you take the land, the abatement, the circulation, accessibility, and all the ecology, doing all the things there, it is going to cost $410 million, basically, to put this site in a good position. And so that's something that Allison and I are very committed to doing. And normally these things are scenarios where the taxpayer has to pay for it. We are doing all of this, and we are not asking for money from the federal government, from the state, from the town. That's us putting this money into this project in order to make this site safe. Thank you. You can come out. You should get, Allison, you get applause too. You're like half part, All right. But yeah, so, it's a lot. And actually, then when you actually look at, like, I know, but then it's crazy because it's like all the fun stuff ends up like seeming so cheap compared to this. But ultimately, we're so excited because the team has come up with such incredible ways to do all of this stuff. And the feedback that we got from you around enhancing the ecology, creating all these educational opportunities, like, we've leaned in so hard on that. And so now we really feel like we're going to build something incredible for Norwalk. And that's what we're most proud of. So the next steps is, let's keep the conversation going. So we have the whole Manresa team is here. All of the different people who are involved in making this happen and putting all these pieces together are here. I want to say a huge thanks to sort of the Manresa ambassadors, who are volunteers helping us out. And they've been helping out with tours and stuff, and they're going to continue to help out more. We're continuing to do tours. If you have not been to the site, go. It is so cool. And, like, this is the worst it will ever be. And it's only in the process of getting better. And I think if you talk to anybody who went on a tour, they're all like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. And so, like, you can just imagine how amazing this park is going to be. And we're so excited to deliver this for this community. And we've been so happy with all the feedback that we've received. And we're just in this position of, like, let's make this happen. And so with that, here are sort of the instructions of, like, you got to walk this little mile, and then you get all the way over to the Newman's Owned area, and we've got all the different teams and people and stuff there. And, for those of you, everybody in the auditorium, there's like 3 times as many people in an overflow room, and we can't figure out how to make the volume loud enough. So they're going to be like, what? And so hopefully you can tell them about this presentation and they heard it. But yeah, so thank you again. And we're really excited to continue the conversation and make this happen.